you have to know the number of people that live at the outskirts of the city. But when you allow everybody to develop a house with 70,000, then you are in trouble. At a point, you end up having people that you can't control. So what we've been doing for the past 3 years, I believe the propaganda of demolition that have been going on is just 1/10. If you could have places like Gobera Road from Ungwarimi, all the Kamazo axis down to NMPC Junction, we take inventory of structures there. We have a building worth about 80,000 structures, not having a single building permit or certificate of occupancy. Then you know the trouble we are into, the society that we are having ourselves in. Then the administration of Mala Nasru El-Rufai, like, give us sense of belonging. Let's understand we are not animals. We go to developed countries, we go to developing countries, we see how things are done in a mannerly, orderly way. Then when we complain and we come back and we continue building houses without the building permit, without CO4, and those building permits are the ones to guide you, to tell you this place has no problem. This is an area that is earmarked for this. This is earmarked for industrial area, for recreational, for institutional, for whatever purpose. And you end up having Kudenden with close to 48,000 structures existing without single building permit. Then you know we're in trouble. And Kudenden was designed for industrial estate, heavy industrial estate, simply because the direction of wind comes from Kao, it goes towards the western part of Kaduna. When you have the flow of River Kaduna coming in from Ungwarimi, dropping at Ungwama Azu Kudenden, then it deposits to Shiroro Dam, where all the waste of the industries will be discharged to the River Kaduna. Before it goes to Shiroro Dam, it has already settled. And here we are building houses. So please, I think the blessing of this administration to Kaduna is not now. And I assure you, all of us here that have been victims of buying plots illegally by the district head or the Mengwa will not happen again. So the advantages are in the nearby future, not now. Thank you. We have some few layouts that have been designed in Kaduna, and those layouts or planning schemes were done that we are not going to see the advantage now, but in the nearby future. That's what I'm saying. That's what about leadership. I had a governor that I worked with, and he was told that this is what we need to do, but the advantage or the benefit is in the next 11 years. He said, I'm here to do what people will understand. Forget about this. Let's do what they will understand, and they will appreciate what we've done. And I thought leadership is taking decision just like taking decision in your house. You have a family, you take top decision, but the children were going to see what you've done in the nearby future. Not to put them at the end of the day. At the end of the day, when you've grown older and you've retired, they will become nuisance to the society. Simply because you've not taken the top decision. So people don't understand the decisions that are taken now are not going to be beneficiary for this now administration. They are going to be something that you're going to benefit in the next 20, 30, 50 years. And that's what about leadership everywhere in the world. So we looked at the health issue. And during COVID, we noticed that nobody can fly out of the country for medical attention. And we felt the government cannot provide hospitals, but rather let's introduce the enabling environment. Then we had to introduce the rubber road from Area House going to the train station. We established an area about 500 hectares, and it's called the Health City. Just part of the eye center, where the rubber road to connect to the train station. And in less than 5 minutes, you can start from Malali, you drop to the Health City, and we created a cluster of hospitals. The hospitals, hotels, shopping centers, where you have all the supports of a hospital. So we make it available for anybody that wants to invest in hospital. You can come there. You can have a plot of land. Based on the size is going to be determined based on your business plan. So we are suggesting that that area where you can have anybody coming from Niger, from Niger, from Zamfara, from anywhere, can stop at the one-stop shop and have all that it takes that has to do with hospital. Now, that is, you need not to go to India, you need not to go to Egypt, you need not to go to, but All of us will be there, and we have established one of its kind health center. The land is available at Kedges. Anybody that is willing to have any partner that will come in can go there. And also we looked at the education. At the newly site of the castle, behind the NTI, there's a road that is going to connect to the Eastern Bypass. We have about 1,342 hectares, which had been designed as a knowledge city. We want to introduce a city where you have all the academic sections, where you have the MBIAs, you have the Open University, the NTI, you have the Petroleum Institute, and all that it takes, and even the film village. We are suggesting that from that axis, we are going to create a very big, massive complex of educational activity. And that is leadership. You looked at what your people missed, you bring investors, they bring in their support, and you give them all that it takes. Then you now create another city where activity would take place. I don't know why they didn't put my slide, because it's not up to what the mayor did. So I don't know, maybe they would have put at least let's have an image. After the Kaduna metropolitan city, we now looked at it had 4.7 million hectares. And since the existence of Kaduna state, there has never been a regional master plan of the state itself, but just the metropolitan city, the Kafancham metropolitan city, and the Zaria metropolitan city. And we looked at what is the size of the land that is being utilized in the Kaduna metropolitan city, which is less than 40,000 hectares. We have 4.7 million hectares. If you want to understand 4.7 million hectares, I always cite an example. Kano State had 2.1 million hectares. So with 2 times of Kano with additional size of land. What have you been doing with this land? When you start from Buruku to Binungwari, even before I was born, that's why we've been experiencing armed robbery. Anybody that's going to Binungwari, Lagos will tell you, Binungwari Road is an armed robbery issue. Then suddenly it moved from there to cattle rustling, then now to kidnapping. Now, once the kidnapping is done, what's next again? Something must happen there. So you can see that we have a very massive land that had never been utilized. And that's why we just fold our hands. And the criminals would look at the advantage and take the advantage, because we've not taken advantage of what we have. Land is a blessing. We've not utilized it. So it's this administration that come up with the regional master plan. And we looked at it. We have right from Buruku to Binungwari, we have close to 800,000 hectares. 800,000 hectares is about 2 states in another part of the country. And we are creating dams that it's going to provide water that flow into Kaduna. For instance, the water that comes from Makarfi, Bauchi, Kubau, Kano, that created River Kaduna from Gadargayam, comes in through Galma Dam, Galma River, or whatever, passes through River Kaduna and goes to Shiroro Dam. Now it goes to Shiroro Dam. Kaduna serves as a drainage. So when the water becomes more and more and more, and it becomes an issue of flooding, thank God the administrator was able to create a way that the water will just flow with what they've done. But we need to look for a lasting solution. Now, what can we do? I'm sorry, I always use this as an example. We Africans, are we next to chimpanzee? Because we can't do this phone, we can't do this TV, we can't do cars, but we are the ones that like to use the best phone and the flashy cars. We need to sit up, we need to tell ourselves the truth, we need to wake up and look at where is our problem? Is it agriculture that we need to do? Because we can't do this for now. And I said to myself, am I next to chimpanzee that I can't do anything? Then if we are going to look at agriculture, then we looked at start working at creating dams, which we are working on that at the moment. When we create a dam at Turunku, it's going to save us the water that comes into Kaduna and create flooding. Then we save the water. We harvest it during the rainy season and use it for irrigation. Those young guys that want to go for business admin and accounting, we tell them, no, you go back to agriculture. Or else we'll continue doing drama. So we have a lot of opportunity. We have created a regional master plan. I wish it's here. I would have shown you what we've done. We've created locations for these dams. We are working with private investors. contractors that can look at how to key in with Kaduna State and partner with. We are working with the federal government to see how the responsibility is going to key in. And if these dams are created, we have never been utilized but by the criminals, and now move our young youths to go there, create agriculture. And that's the reason why we brought OCP. Now, OCP fertilizer are not going to use the fertilizer. We see that everybody go and buy fertilizer and put it on his farm. OCP fertilizer are going to look at the unique nature of soil that is in Kachia and the unique nature of soil that is in Benungwari. What are we going to farm at Benungwari? What kind of soil is there? What kind of fertilizer are we going to introduce there? They have a demo farm that they are going to do the practice so that we'll be able to have the fertilizer that the people need at that point in time. And that's the reason why we brought about the African Exim Bank, so that there is this way of exporting these things in a quick way. So I think just those are the few things I can say for now due to time. But I wish all of us will look at the angle of the agriculture. And that's, I think, number one we need to go into. It's going to take a good number of youths rather than thinking of one or two things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, DJ Kasumda. Thank you. So unfortunately, we're not able to see DJ's slides, but you agree with me that he carried all of us along on his presentation. I think he deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much. So we'll be moving into our first panel session of the day. First, I'll be introducing the moderator, Dolapo Pupola. She's the MD of Kaduna Power Supply Company. Please join me on stage. A round of applause for her. And we have our panelists, our administrator for the Kaduna Capital Territory Authority, Malam Mohammed Hafiz Bello. We have the administrator for Zaria Metropolitan Authority, ably represented by her special assistant, and Madam Phoebe Sukeyai, the administrator of Kafanchan Municipal Authority. Joining us virtually would be Jackson Ukwevo, the CEO of Runches Global Resources Limited. And the title of this panel session is Kaduna Building the Future.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So good morning, invited guests. Good morning, our esteemed investors. And good morning, Kaduna. Please permit me to stand on the established protocols. I wonder, actually, if everyone is as excited as I am to be at KADINVEST 7.0. This means 7 years running, 7 years under the visionary and selfless leadership of Governor Nasir El-Rufai, 7 years of quality discourse, 7 years of attracting investment and showcasing the economic prospects of Kaduna. My name is Dolapo Popola, a proud Kaduna woman and the managing director of the Kaduna Power Supply Company. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, I will also try to shout more. I find it within my small body to project louder. Okay, so I want to fill the energy infrastructure gap in Kaduna. Hence, I'm particularly elated to be moderating the very first panel in our infrastructure pavilion. You are definitely in for a treat, okay? The topic for this panel is Kaduna, Building for the Future. And as the MC has mentioned, we have 4 distinguished panelists here. During this panel, we will discuss the ongoing infrastructure projects in Kaduna State. We will discuss the commitment of the government towards inclusive infrastructure development. That means we want to hear from you. We want to have it inclusive and fully integrated. We will also discuss progress and challenges that we've encountered so far. The panelists are already on stage, so I can't invite them. However, I'm going to do a very quick profile of each one of them for you. Our first panelist, and I'm starting with the ladies, has attended the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. She has a master's degree in law enforcement and criminal justice, as well as a master's in disaster risk management and development studies. She has worked in various capacities in the private sector and public sector of Kaduna, and is now the premier administrator of the Kafanchan Municipal Authority. Auntie Phoebe, as I like to call her, is a seasoned public servant. She has served as Director of Budget, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Permanent Secretary, Planning and Budget Commission. Thank you for joining us, Auntie Phoebe. Our next panelist, our next female panelist represented here is also a graduate of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and a trustee of the Center for Research and Development Solutions. She has also worked as an education specialist and deputy program director for the Earth Institute of Columbia University. So we have quality people on our panel today. She was a special advisor in the office of the MDG set up by the President of Nigeria. She was also the commissioner of the Ministry of Rural and Community Development, as well as the Ministry of Works. Please welcome her. She's represented by Abdullahi Lere, sitting to my far right, and he is the special assistant to the administrator. Thank you for joining us, Abdullahi. Our next panelist, Mr. Hafiz Bayero, was a member of the founding team of KADIPA 7 years ago. So he was probably in his 20s then. Through the Kaduna Startup Entrepreneurship Program, CADSTEP, he helped create jobs and facilitate access to seed funding for hundreds of SMEs in Kaduna. He has served in various capacities in the public sector, helping to build critical infrastructure in the process. Thank you for joining us, Hafiz. I know you don't like long introductions, so I'm going to stop there. Our fourth and final panelist, who is joining us virtually, Mr. Jackson Ukwevo, is the founder and CEO of Ranches Global Resources Limited, a Harvard Law and Harvard Kennedy School trained professional who has successfully built his company to become a leading provider of traffic solutions, construction and procurement services in Nigeria. Jackson Ukwevo is the man behind the beautiful road markings that made our Sokoto Road Junction picture go viral. Please welcome Mr. Jackson Ukwevo. Thank you for joining us. He's a bit ill, but he's gracious enough to still be with us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get to the reason why we are here. Building for the future. Thriving societies demand improved organization, digitization, efficient transport, good waste management, and so on. So my very first question will be directed at the mayors. In your view, what are the fundamental infrastructure required for a city to thrive? Are these present in your various cities? And what are you doing to fill the gaps, if any? I mean, is there a master plan, for instance? So I'll start with the mayor of Kafanchan, Auntie Phoebe.
Thank you, Dolapo. What we are doing currently in Kafanchan, as you are all aware, that development in Kafanchan is not as massive as it is in Kaduna at the moment. But because we want to create a city, we want to create a smart city, we want to bring development, one of the things that we have started is to look at the various routes that will be able to make people live and work happily wherever they are. And we'll be able to move from wherever they are to places where they'll be able to work and also have some other businesses of their own. What we are doing is that the master plan that we have for Kafanchan is an outdated master plan, and we are already working towards getting a new master plan for Kaduna State, and not, for Kafanchan Metropolitan Authority, but not just for Kafanchan Metropolitan Authority, but we're also looking at having, an inclusive master plan, which is also going to involve Zaria and also going to involve Kaduna. But so far, for what we are having now is, as I did mention in my little presentation, we have started with about 7 roads for now, which we are also collaborating with the local government areas to be sure that at least we reduce the dilapidated roads, we don't have much of flooding as in other parts of the state, even though we do have. But also, again, to be able to maintain those roads, we are also opening up all the drainages. We are doing the silting to ensure that we have a clean city. We are doing waste management. We are doing refuse disposal and all that note. So for us to be able to have good infrastructures, as I said, we're also looking at the layout that were earlier on made by KADIS that have not been followed up. We are working with them, and they have already come. They've done some assessment to be able to open up, because when we have these areas open up, we will be able to have more development. We'll be able to have people move, and then we'll have more expansion. Those of us here who are used to Kafanchan will know that Kafanchan itself, this town in Kafanchan itself, is already congested. And unless we are able to expand, unless we are able to open up, we will continue to have this congestion, which is not healthy for the health of the people, neither is it healthy for businesses. So what we are doing at the moment is our concentration now is more on the road construction, road infrastructure. And then again, as it is said, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. We don't want to make the Kafanchan people or Kafanchan Metropolitan Authority people to be the dull people. So that is why we are also working on the mini sport complex. Because if you go to Kafanchan now, you find out that all recreational centers are very limited. And those of them that are available, in fact, I would not say they are outdated, but they are not up to standard to what we really require for now. So you find out that a lot of people, there are no sporting activities, there are no facilities for recreation, there are no facilities for, picnics, wedding ceremonies, all that kind of thing. Absolutely. So we are looking at areas where we'll be able to bring back life to people to be able to move on and to be able to, develop it.
And that's very important. Thank you very much, Auntie Bibi. So it sounds like for Kafanchan, the critical infrastructure for you that you've identified so far are roads, waste development, managing your waste properly, and defining layouts to open up and expand the city center. Okay, so I will move on to our landlord in Kaduna here, the mayor of Kaduna. Can you tell us a little bit about what you feel the critical infrastructure required in Kaduna is? And if there are any gaps, what are you doing about it?
Thank you, Dolapo. At the presentation, I had earlier highlighted on the issue of road infrastructure, but that is not just it. A lot of times when people discuss infrastructure, people just think of roads, but they are just a component of it, not everything. What is more important for societies to thrive and for cities to thrive, I think, is water, power, particularly renewable energy. We need to quickly move away from the normal energy sources into renewable energy, waste management and recycling and reusing of a lot of these things. So in the water sector here in Kaduna, I've already spoken on the road, so I'll just go to the water. We have the water that we have right now, the water treatment systems that we have now was built for about 500,000 people. And now in Kaduna, we are about 4 million, which means that it is clearly not adequate. And there is a project now, the Greater Kaduna Water Supply Expansion Project, together with building of the ETC dam, which if completed will be able to supply water to about 2 to 3 million. But by the time that is done, the population would have increased to 6 million. So you see the problem with infrastructure and infrastructure gap. Nonetheless, this administration is pursuing it. We want to do that, and we're working with the federal government to do so. In the area of power, power is also another very critical infrastructure. We all need power in our homes, in our businesses, to charge our electrical devices. And you have been doing quite a lot, actually. So maybe I should throw this question back at you. But I know what she has been doing, and I'm happy that most of the efforts happen to be within Kaduna Capital Territory, the 84 megawatts power plant, the 30 megawatts from Gurara, which is being wheeled to Kaduna, right? We have the 100 megawatt solar power project with other northern states. And if you put all that together, you would see that it will be more than what we currently have in Kaduna. So it will definitely add our self-sufficient in the area of power. And that means that more industries will be able to come on board. Part of the reason why when I said Kakuri is no longer what it used to be is mainly because there is no power for those businesses. And we talk about waste management, where people just think is taking out trash and throwing it somewhere. I'm glad that right at the front row, Alhaji Khalifa is here, a private investor who is very, very keen in investing in Kaduna and has done so many things, is also going to partner with us in KCTA to set up a very, very robust waste management system that goes into not only recycling, but being able to turn some of those waste items to power, particularly small captive power. So for us, this is, as we're building on the roads, we're building on the clusters, it is very important that we identify where the water is coming from and make provisions for it. We identify where the power is coming from and make provisions for that. So I think this is what is very key as we push on the infrastructure mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Hafiz. I think you've answered the question in saying that, yes, the fundamental infrastructure is there somewhat in Kaduna, particularly in Kaduna Capital Territory. However, because the city keeps growing, keeps expanding, it's almost a continuous endeavor. You have to keep innovating, and you have to keep keeping up with the population and improving with modern technology. So that's well noted. Thank you for that insight. Can we take the mayor of Zaria next?
Okay, thank you. I will prefer you say the representative of the mayor, please. Of course, Zaria is not quite different from Kaduna. We have high deficit of infrastructure, especially in roads. Like I said in my earlier presentation, we identified as a priority more than 50 roads, but due to funds, paucity of funds, we've been able to start only with 5. And of course, we have so many coming in from the local government areas, from different community establishments. And of course, we keep on designing them and keeping them. We are hoping to get more funds to be able to actualize these roads. Of course, we have the challenges of power. Being a very big city of so many institutions, power is very, very key. But that has not been adequate. And of course, we are hoping your organization will also come to our aid. Of course, like what you've been doing in Kaduna, we will certainly appreciate what CAPSCO is doing. I'm happy my brother, the MD of CATSWAC, is here. We have, even though we have the Zaria Water Project Commission, but certainly it is way, way, way behind. You cannot come to Zaria and have a flowing water for one full day up to now. So we, even though it's a state and federal government project, but we believe we can do more with more flowing water in our taps. Of course, the issue of lighting, we've been doing quite well on that. And but we hope the few street lights we have will be able to assuage the security issues that we have in Zaria. Then coming to West, which is also a very serious matter in Zaria. At one time, like I said, we had challenges, serious challenges managing them. But at the moment, we are working with the contractors. And of course, we have another investor who is interested in turning all of those waste into wealth in the person of Bearling's recycling company. We've been discussing with him, and I believe very soon we'll get to the promised land. Much about the infrastructure deficit, we've been doing quite well to be able to prioritize so that at least the impact of Zaria Metropolitan Authority would be felt by the people of Zaria Metropolitan area.
I stand corrected, Mr. Abdullahi, relevant or act response to this question. I think we're a little bit ahead of time, so I'm going to take a moment to just go follow up on that. To say that it's straight, as is mentioned, is waste management. And this is an infrastructure panel. So let's talk a little bit more about waste management. What kind of infrastructure do we need? And people, the residents of Kaduna, what can they do to assist? Do we have landfills? Do we have garbage disposal cans? What exactly are the major bottlenecks and challenges? Are there regulatory constraints? Why is that still a major problem for us? I will start with Zaria and then Kafanchan, please.
Okay, thank you. What we are looking at, if we say waste management, is the issue of collecting this waste, the required dump site, basically. We have some transfer stations, but of course, because of human nature, are not being utilized. You see that somebody will just come time, he'll just drop it in his drainage. That is causing serious problem, but that has been a very serious environmental issue. And of course, at one time, you discover that there are so many of these dump sites, but we don't even know of them because they have not been designated areas. So until and unless we're able to get the information that, look, we have serious boiler here, we cannot actually contain it. So basically, these are some of the problems. And of course, at one time, you have so many waste bins at designated areas, but people will now make them personal. So in that case, there's no way you have a dustbin here for the people of this particular area, and someone has monopolized it into his house. And of course, they will have to waste because every single person generates waste every blessed hour. So, and because of that, it has to be managed, and it has to be managed effectively and efficiently.
So that sounds to me like you're alluding that it's more of a people problem than maybe infrastructure. No, I'll let you think about that. I want to hear what Phoebe has to say. Is that the same situation in Kafanchan? Do you find it's more of a people problem than maybe a lack of the necessary infrastructure?
Well, you see, generally, for you to have a smart city, you must have a clean city. You can't have a smart city outside a clean city. So whatever you do, even in your own home, let me just take this example. Once you have a very dirty home, of course your home is not smart. Your home is not organized. Your home is not healthy. So for you to be able to have a smart city, one of the criteria is to be able to have a clean and environmentally friendly city. One of the major causes of flooding is blockages, drainage blockages. The GM of Kasubda just gave us a brief about some of our houses that are built without drainages. Now, even those drainages, you find out that they are not being kept clean. So you find out that when people come out from their houses, especially during the rainy season, they're looking for a quick way out. They just drop it in the drain, and then they're expecting that when the rains come, it will wash it down. When it washes it down, it gets to a point where it gets blocked. And there also, it causes another problem. Now again, when we are talking about waste, waste is simply wealth. Once we have waste, we can turn waste into our wealth. We have seen communities, we have seen entrepreneurs using this nylon to construct bags, to construct baskets, to do a lot of things. So what are we using our waste for? Are we just using it? Are we destroying it? How are we even destroying? How are we disposing of it? But one of our major problems, again, that we have in this part of the country is that you have some certain collection centers, you have some certain dump sites, but then at the end of the day, what do you do? What are you sorting this? Are you sorting how are you recycling it? Because if you don't recycle it, it becomes another problem altogether. Once it is being recycled, you are generating more of wealth from that, from the garbage. Again, the question now you ask yourself, how many of us have formed clusters where we begin to have collection centers. And then how many people have we come to identify that they are using that as collection points or collection centers as their own business? We know in a lot of developed countries, we have people that, they just specialize in, identifying houses, get those houses to register, and from time to time, at interval, they go to collect and then dispose properly. Here, what do? We generate revenue, we generate refuse, and then we want government to come and clean. To some extent, there was a time I was going around the streets of Kafanchan, and I met a particular group of people, men, adult, household heads, seated in front of garbage. And I asked them, I said, you live here? They said, yes. Then why do you have this garbage in front of you? You know what they told me? It was so pathetic. The cleaners are yet to come. Who are the cleaners? Government does not pay money for cleaners to come and clean your house. It is not the responsibility of government to clean, to evacuate the refuse that you have generated. This is your responsibility. But then we need to identify dump sites. We need to identify collection sites where people will also make money by evacuating this refuse to the appropriate dump site. Today we are talking about polluter pay principle in Kaduna State. People should be able to take responsibility of evacuating the refuse that they are generating. But today in Kaduna, in Nigeria, in fact, we are not even looking at that. So talking about waste, we should not just look at waste as something that, yes, it is actually refuse, but we should be looking at waste as something that can generate into wealth.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. So I think members of the audience, we've heard that. Both Zaria and Kafanchan seem to think that, yes, we have a major people problem where it comes to waste management, and there's some responsibility on our end to ensure that our cities are clean. However, I think the audience would want to know as well, when they play their role, is there also an infrastructure solution, right? Such as recycling, or maybe bigger drainages, or situating landfills and so on, to this waste management problem. So I'm hoping that the administrator of the Kaduna Capital Territory Authority can enlighten us on possible infrastructure solutions for our waste management problems.
Thank you, Dolapo. Like I said earlier, when I mentioned it as part of an infrastructure problem, first of all, you have to look at the containerization issues. When I say containerization, I mean, how can you keep this waste? Because sometimes just having trucks run every morning and evening picking up waste is not efficient. You find out that the overall cost of doing that is quite high, because sometimes most of the garbage bins are not even full at that time, at least most of them. In certain areas, you find some that are full, and in most areas, you find that some are only a quarter full, which means that they have to come back later and do the same rounds by the time other people come out to put it. But if you also don't come out around that time, it means that the bins that are full get left unattended. So this is the first issue in terms of provision of infrastructure, in terms of provision of receptacles, waste bins, etc., and ensuring that they are properly placed where waste is generated. And then the issue of, you spoke about the landfill. Now, people just feel that dump sites or landfills are just areas you create and just go and dump waste there every day. And then after 10 years, it gets filled, you close it, and then you open another one. But no, there are methods of constructing these landfills. And they are very detailed. You put certain infrastructure in the area of developing these landfills. And if you do them very well, you will find out that even the sorting is easier. And like I said, this is what we are trying to do here in Kaduna, and I'm happy KK Kingdom is right here in front of us. We are looking at the entire value chain and saying, because we know that it is wealth for them, why is the government even paying any money for this? And of course, we are now pursuing the polluter pay, saying if you produce the pollution, you'll have to pay for the evacuation. We had some hitches in the implementation, but we are moving ahead to ensure that we begin to break even at least. That is the cost government is now paying to take away the waste is equal to the amount of money that those who generate the waste are paying currently. But what we want to do and what we want to see is a situation where we get a company, a private company that does it end to end. This waste, like Administrator Kafanchan said, is wealth. So come and take our wealth from our inner streets, inner roads, our major roads, our houses, take it to the landfill, we'll give you the land, and you recycle the plastic, you can sell it. And there are so many other items that they can get out of it. Some will do plastics, some they are just looking for the compost for organic fertilizer. And we're going towards that area so that government can hands off, and we can get one company that will come and do it end to end and benefit from that, the wealth that will be generated after.
Thank you, Hafiz. So there you have it. I'm glad we spent some more time talking about waste management. It's a common problem in a lot of cities in Nigeria. And it sounds like all our mayors, permit me to keep calling you mayor. I know you're not elected, but it just, we young people love to call you mayor. All our mayors seem to believe it's the responsibilities on both parts, both the government and the citizenry. So the government is supposed to provide the waste garbage receptacles, garbage cans, regular pickups, landfill planning, and so on to optimize the existing infrastructure. But then as residents of Kaduna, we also have the responsibility of doing the right thing, properly disposing of our waste, and even starting businesses where you recycle waste and make money from it. So thank you very much for that insightful discussion. I'm going to pivot now and direct this question to Mr. Jackson Ukwevo. I hope he doesn't feel like we've neglected and forgotten him. Do we still have him online? Can we confirm?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I can hear you clearly.
Excellent, thank you, Jackson. So as a provider of construction services to the public sector, how would you describe the partnership and the ease of doing business in Kaduna?
Hello?
I can hear you, we can hear you. Did you get the question?
Okay, I can hear you now. No, I didn't get your question at first.
All right, so I was asking that as a provider of construction services to the public sector, how would you describe the partnership and the ease of doing business in Kaduna?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like, you know, when we came into Kaduna, it was like the first time we actually came in to see how we can partner with the state government, because that's what we usually do basically. And being a company who provides solutions to state government and also offer infrastructure development services to state governments and then federal governments. So in 2013, when we came in at first, which is the first time we set up our footprint in Kaduna State, and then we tried to see how we can partner with the state government at that period of time, but it wasn't an easy stuff for us then. Then in 2018 was when we got a proper inroad into Kaduna State. And having to come into Kaduna ever since then, it has put us in a position and understanding the need of the development of the infrastructure the state has actually been looking up to, which is having to have a proper roadmap and a master plan to have a design that suits to the vision of the future of the state. And Kaduna being a state that is well positioned and in a proximity location where you have how you can strategic proximity to Abuja, Kano, and also the likes of other northern states as well. You know, and then since we came in and then we set up our operations here and doing all of this project with the states and partnering with them with the urban renewal project as a strategic partner, it wasn't a difficult thing for us as at then. And then since then, working with them to date and the people in the state as well. For example, on our own section, which is the infrastructure company, you know, and Kaduna has also provided a huge platform for infrastructure businesses like ours to thrive, in the sense that you could see the significant indices for construction performance indicates about 3 indicators, which the quality of labor force, number 1, then number 2, certainty of business development and opportunity. Then number 3 is which is what I said earlier on, strategic proximity to federal capital and then the commercial city of Kano and also other northern part of the country. Yeah, so number 1, for example, construction companies generally requires a huge number of high-skilled staffs, which is a high-skilled technicians, quality guys in terms of guys who will be like doing the fixing job, the carpenters, and also guys who also operate heavy GT equipment and lower GT equipment. It wasn't a big deal for us. We came in and we started the operations and all our projects. Guys were already on ground. We largely, most of them as an indigenous that live in Kaduna as well. So, and some of these guys are worked with companies like the likes of Julius Berger, Mother Cards, and all of those. And with that value, it was a skill to run chess, having those people under us. So it made everything so easy for us and made our operation in a seamless position that we didn't have to start shipping in other guys or shipping in people to come into Kaduna to carry out this project with us and all of those things. So it helps our partnership in a way that we're able to position very well properly in the States without any difficulty as at then till now. On that. Then the certainty of business development and the opportunity that I see to what we're doing in Kaduna State. With our experience in Kaduna, it has become evenly clear that the level of infrastructure development being taken under the administration of His Excellency, Governor Nasir El-Rufai, and that has also presented in a way that you see that it has a huge fertile ground to us in business who wants to focus and really wants to try to compete on infrastructure space. You know, that has also really helped us very well. And it also positioned us in a way that it gave us every opportunity to showcase the Runchest 3Es, which is our expertise, experience, and equipment. And for that reason, we are largely grateful to the states by giving us that huge opportunity to work with them. And to the number 3, which is the proximity to federal capital and also to Kano, where we get some of our parts and all of those, and also getting our raw materials and having to work with companies with the like of the Turkey's Sebazek company that gives us some of the materials that we use. It's just been so really easy. And even the people as well in the government agencies, the MDAs, and the relationship with the people here, the communication, the people here are just really open to receive you and to give you the opportunity that you are looking for if you really want to thrive in your industry and in your area of competency. I see that the state has actually really done well to that, and that has really, really helped us very well. And we are really happy and glad to be here to continue our operations as well with the state governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackson. Please, a bigger round of applause for Mr. Jackson. I think what I found really interesting in his response is that he said he actually tried when he started the company in 2013 to do business in Kaduna, but wasn't successful, and that this changed in 2018.
No, sorry, excuse me.
Okay, correct me.
No, sorry, excuse me. We started business in 2000. Our first footprint to Kaduna was in 2013 when we wanted to do business. We were not able to gain a proper entry. So our first entry that gave us a proper footprint was in 2018.
All right, thank you for that point of correction. And you also mentioned that something unique about doing business in Kaduna, particularly for you as a provider of construction services, was the quality and availability of labor, as well as the ease of communication with government. Yeah. Yes, is that correct? Okay.
Yes, you're right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. So I'm going to come back to the mayors for this question. So what are the challenges? And I know we've covered some of these, so we're going to streamline this question. What are the challenges of infrastructure development, and how do you think Kaduna State can navigate them as it looks into the future? So particularly, let's talk about the area of finances. During each of your presentations earlier on, you gave us some numbers around what would be required financially. In KCTA, they said we needed between 600 to 900 billion naira to finish our roads, right? So one of the challenges is clearly finances and funding. So how can we perhaps still build the Kaduna of the future, the Kaduna we can all look forward to, the one that inspires us, but yet save costs, prioritize projects, and still run an efficient, effective city? Let me start with the administrator of KCTA.
Okay, I'll be very quick on this because they are not, apart from government funding, you can look at involving the private sector, but they'll have to find a way to get their money back. So we're talking of tolls, but the roads that we are talking about are mostly single lane inner city roads. How many of those can you toll? You can look at increasing taxes, so you have more money to do that. But what I think we can quickly do is to perhaps, I spoke of the focus inward theme earlier, where we begin to encourage multi-story buildings, because everybody wants to build and have their own compound and their gate and their fence. What this does is it continues to expand. And with every expansion, it means you have to build more roads. You have to build more bridges, more drainages. Where if you build vertically on the same parcel of land, you can have, let's say, 20 flats. With 5 people per household, that is 20 times 5 is 1,000. Go 1,000 people living just on this square, and it means that you just have to do that road, that one, the perimeter roads. But if all the 100 households will go and build 100 units, individual units, you can begin to imagine how many roads you'll have to do to ensure that those roads reach all those places. So it's also a planning issue that we need to look at our planning laws and make the necessary changes, which I know is being done currently in the last few months to accommodate this sort of buildings that encourage living together and sharing of resources. This will cut down the cost of building roads and other infrastructure drastically. Thank you.
Can we hear from Auntie Phoebe?
I think for us in Kafanchan, as I did mention earlier on, Kafanchan itself, the Kafanchan town is already congested. So if we're able to have more areas open up, have new layouts, ensure that people do the proper thing by getting the building permits, the approvals, and of course it comes with some little funding. I mean, with some little payment, if we're able to get more participation, and then have people get this planning permit approved, and then make the necessary payment, get the CFOs, and all that. And then where we also have opening up of markets, where we will have shops on lease. As I said, we're working on the sport complex, where we're also going to have some shops that will be up for lease and things like that. And then if we're also able to open up more tourist centers, more revenue, because as we have, so we need private partnership, we need investors, we need people to come in to be able to invest and be able to provide all the necessary facilities that people will also benefit from. That will also create more jobs for our youth. And if we're also able to look at our agricultural sector, open more of agri-businesses that comes in chains and chains of values. We have a lot of value chains in our ginger, in our yams, in our rice, in our solid mineral. We have thousands and thousands of them. But then you look at our youth today, most of them are being idle because they just feel that they have the skills, they need to learn. We need to get them to understand what is it that you are good at. So it's not just the certificate that you go to the school to get, but what is your skill?
Yeah, right.
That is over dependent on even our parents. Today you find people of 30, 40 still dependent on their parents. They are also supposed to be parents of their own, but you still find them,
So your point is that because of limited resources, it's important for people to be able to empower, for them to be empowered and for them to also contribute. Thank you very much.
We need a lot of investors to come in. Well, but for us in Southern Kaduna, some people might be thinking about security. We have done a lot about security, because if you come to Kaduna State, under the Kaduna Capital Territory, you go to Zaria, you have a lot of security operatives. What you have in Kaduna City is the kind of security arrangements that we have in the southern part of Kaduna. So investors have a better environment friendly area for them to come in and invest, because security has actually been dealt with, security has actually been taken care of, so everywhere is safe. What we need now is for the people to come in to take advantage of the enabling environment that we have.
I agree with you. I think security is very important. Cities will be abandoned if there is no assurance that there would be security and people would feel safe, their properties and livelihoods. Okay, so very quickly, please, because we're now running behind schedule, can we take some input from Zaria Metropolitan Authority in terms of, given this huge challenge of funding and finances, how do we prioritize projects, save costs, and run an efficient city?
Okay, thank you very much. Much as I would like to concur with the views and opinions expressed, the best option to finance infrastructure. If you look at the huge deficit, and if you look at no doubt that the government cannot do it alone. Of course, we need to encourage ownership. I mean, whatever infrastructure is put in place, the people of that understand that this ownership structure from benefits. Of course, the mayor of Kaduna has talked about probably increasing taxes. I bet to disagree because certainly that will make our people more impoverished, and with the hyperinflation in place, certainly we'll have more insecurity. Thank you very much.
So if the administrators or the mayors ever had any hopes of being elected, they would definitely not increase taxes. Okay.
Certainly.
So I've noticed that all three of the administrators have sort of skirted the issue of prioritizing projects. And to me, infrastructure project is more important than the other. How do you do roads without doing water? How do you do roads without doing efficient waste management? So the solution they are preferring is, what about if we consolidate, right? Which is what the administrator of KCTA has said. And this alludes to building and planning efficiency, right? So multi-story buildings where you can consolidate services to 10,000 people in one go, and so on, right? And also the administrator, the representative of the administrator of ZMA has also said, look, what if we sustain the infrastructure we build? We find ways to keep them going for as long as possible and reduce waste so that our costs in the long run would be reduced. So I think that was very, very insightful. Thank you once again. A round of applause, please, for this particular question.
Mr. Lapo, can I add up something to hello?
Mr. Jackson. Apart from solutions and construction, what other services do you consider important to achieve an all-inclusive approach to infrastructure development?
Okay, thank you. At first, I was going to add up to the funding part of project and having to have selective project and what projects should be prioritized. I think it's hard time that the citizens and also other investors and private sectors need to start looking at areas where they don't just leave all major infrastructure alone to the government. Because even in well-developed countries, most times the government only develop the basic. Then the private sector comes in to handle the finishing and make it more efficient to the citizen. Then that's where it now increases to bring in more revenues to the people and also create more jobs. For example, I would say, like some of the roads that the government has built, some of the bridges that the government have built, and they are still building right now, there are a lot of finished components that is already there. For private sector, you don't have to be a multi-millionaire or multi-billionaire for you to see the opportunity that this infrastructure has also provided. It's actually making and providing an avenue, which is the business opportunity that the people should see. The first thing first, once a development takes place in one road, in one section, there is an opportunity that's going to come up. It's going to increase a lot of value. It's going to attract a lot of stuff that will start coming into that area. So one, building up a landmark bridges, right? For example, where you have somewhere, let's say, I'll say like Brooklyn Bridge, which is almost same thing kind of thing that we're doing in Damagaji and Kofanduka Bridge. Those are projects that are going to probably attract investors to start coming into building hotels, because people will come in and they want to go see those bridges and see those infrastructure. They're going to start putting up all of other things, components that are the missing components of those infrastructure, adding it to it. The Cow Bridge, for example, if I have access to Cow Bridge, I can set up a little more around the Cow Bridge section, which is investors need to start looking at that. Private sectors need to start looking at that, support the government to help them expand this infrastructure very well, for it to be well effective and well efficient to the people as well too. And also to that end, core business is for them to support the government, and they are waiting for government to keep building infrastructure for them. But they also can also pull out funds and support the government, take money out from this Nigerian stock market and also inject it into the government project. Then over time, it pays off to the government and also to the investors as well. So, but a lot of these investors want the government to just come in at first and just do all the entire infrastructure for us to expand and help the government to create a job. The government cannot be the one creating job for us.
And it's a shame that accompany and complement major infrastructure projects. I'm afraid we'll just have to end here. But perhaps the audience would like an opportunity to ask their own questions. So we will open up for 2 questions. I'll take 2, not 3. 2 questions from the audience. So you can indicate by show of hands if you want to ask a question to any of the panelists in this session. I think this is what happens when you do your panel right before lunch. Everybody's thinking of food.
Question? Anyone has a question?
I want to commend the efforts. My name is Hollywood Antolo. I'm the general manager of business and commercial activity. Listen carefully. We talked about the Electropolis. And Electropolis is basically around this airport. And now Kaduna State International Airport, which serves as the fastest gateway to any state or town in trying to bring in investors. Because if you tell your investors to come in, they cannot take the bar road. They cannot come by train any longer. But they need to do, the Kaduna State government needs to put in more efforts to bring in more into the Kaduna airport. If I'm asked a question right now, Mayor of Zaria City, you talked about tourism, and you have a very rich tourist centers. But how many times have the tourism center or agency come to advertise what they have to see at our own airport? Because if you go to Benin Airport, as you arrive, just a moment, as you arrive, the first thing you see is probably the Benin royal father, all those breeze and all that to tell people that this is it. And secondly, the cargo business. The ginger is very good. We need to export them outside this state. How do we do it? You use our airport. The airport is safe. And the security, we go there every day and we've not been harmed. So I want to also employ the Kaduna State and the indigenes of Kaduna State that the Kaduna International Airport is functioning well. We have Asman Air going to Lagos. We have Air Peace coming in, and we have Rano Air too. And they are bringing close to 150 passengers every day. So please try and use what you have. Just a moment, please. If you go to Akure,
I'm sorry,
you go to Ibadan,
we
there's
have
a
to
lot.
cut you short at this point. Thank you so very much for talking about our airport and for your suggestions of what we can do. Thank you very much. Do we have a second question? We'll just take one more question. Right there, the young man in front.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Abdul Halim Isaac Ringim. Firstly, my question goes to Mayor. Yeah, Kafanchan. I'm taking out Kaduna City because basically the agricultural wealth and the solid minerals are there. So I was wondering, you talked about lack of finance and everything, but I think we have to find innovative ways of finance. We talk about taxes and everything. So I was wondering, with the wealth of agricultural commodities produced in the territory and solid minerals, perhaps have you considered floating perhaps an SPV for the solid minerals, a special purpose vehicle in collaboration to collaborate with the Kaduna State Mining Development Company to see that the value chain is robustly developed? And of course, cultural commodities sector, have you thought of perhaps floating also a commodities exchange, Kaduna Commodity Exchange, for example, where you optimize the commodities aggregation and also digital trade and commerce? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So whichever who wants to answer that, wants to take that. Do we have Auntie Phoebe?
Talking about the advert at the airport and also looking at the investors coming in, as you are all aware, the metropolitan authorities are just 1 year today. So we are taking a day at a time. And we are working assiduously to ensure that we are able to bring all partners together. And we are also linking up to every other investor. And that is part of the reasons why we are here at this KADINVEST 7.0. So that we'll be able to showcase what we have and also be able to invite investors who will be able to come in and take advantage of the various opportunities that we have. And then talking about the mining company of Kaduna State, we're also already into discussions with them. As I said also during my presentation, we're already into discussion with the Ginger Association. And then we have, in fact, given them so much more of the value chains that they were not even looking at before, which already they are beginning to work into, and they're beginning to engage. So basically, one of the reasons why we are here is to also be able to showcase what we have and to be able to get other investors, because so many of them are not even aware of what we have. But thank God, as we did mention, we are reaching out and we are trying the best we can so that you are also part of the ambassadors that we are looking at that will be able to sell us out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I believe that we'll take this feedback and go and work on improving our engagement with the private sector. I think the ideas of the commodities exchange and the SPV for solid minerals are excellent ideas. And thank you very much to the audience member that brought that up. So we have come to the end of this panel. I suspect that that applause was more, oh yeah, come and go home than development in the three biggest cities in Kaduna and the unique challenges we've encountered, and while implementing an infrastructure plan. It has been an honor for me to moderate this insightful panel. I want to thank the panelists, and I also want to thank the audience for sticking with us, and I wish you a fruitful rest of the Business Expo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please, can our panelists just remain on stage so we can take one picture? Just one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us for a long first half. We're about to go on break. I know it's been a long time coming. Before we go, we'd like to recognize the presence of Malam Khalifa Nazir Abdullahi, the president and CEO of KK Kingdom, one of our main sponsors for this event. May we have a round of applause for him, please? Thank you. If you want to get lunch, there is a concession stand at the back of the event venue. Just walk there. You can also use this as a prayer and networking break, and we'll see you back in 30 minutes. Again, we'll be back here in 30 minutes. Feel free to visit the concession stand, get snacks, get drinks, and we'll see you back for the next round of events. Thank you.
How ridiculous is this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back from your break. We have 5 more minutes, and in 5 minutes, we'll start our presentation. So if you know anyone that was here or is supposed to be here and is not here now, please call them in so that we can have a good number while we start. Thank you. Hello, everyone. You're welcome to the second half of our Infrastructure Sector Expo. We would really like for everyone, there are lots of empty spaces in front. So if you know you're seated at the back, please fill the seat in front of you so that we don't have many empty spaces. I'm watching. Please fill the seat in front of you so that we don't have as many empty spaces while we get ready for the next item on the agenda, which is a presentation by the MD of Kaduna State Water Corporation, KADSWAC, on water infrastructure investments. So as soon as we're settled, as soon as the seats in front of us are filled, we will get into the next item on the agenda. Standing. So I'm hearing from one of our main sponsors that they have something special arranged for us, but would have to remain seated and take a few presentations first. So on to the next item on the agenda. As I mentioned before, we have a presentation on water infrastructure investments by Mr. Sanusi Mekudi, the MD of Kaduna State Water Corporation. Can we give him a round of applause as he takes the stage? Or his representative? I think he's here. Yes, sir.
Try and trace the presentation so that it can guide us. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. May I use this opportunity, number one, to stand on existing protocols. Number two, to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to come and discuss water infrastructure investments. And number three, to start by laying out the objectives of the presentation. It's a little bit different from what we have so far witnessed earlier during the day. The objectives of the presentation, number one, is to acquaint the audience with the strategic importance of water infrastructure. The lecture seeks to state that Water is central to everything human, everything life, everything development. It is the only thing, one of the few things that if you take them away, the equations will be both incomplete and it will never balance. So whether you are talking about human health, human survival, food security, urbanization, energy, sanitation, it's not possible without water. And conventional wisdom, we remember one old English poem that says, water, water everywhere, but not a single drop to drink. You remember the nursery rhyme, water, water everywhere, but not a single drop to drink. That happened when some people were inside ship and their quantity of fresh water was exhausted and they were in the midst of the ocean. If you are in the sea, high sea, you look north, south, east, west, you see water. But is that water consumable? That is a salty water. It's not a fresh water. You cannot consume it. The taste is not nice on the tongue and it does not quench taste. So please start from the beginning. Thank you. As you can see, the title of my presentation is Water Infrastructure Investment in a VUCA World. So I just talk about the VUCA world. What is a VUCA world? The VUCA world is the world in which we live now. Before now, human civilization passed through stages. There was a time we were in the Stone Age, Iron Age, Machine Age, Computer Age. During all these ages, philosophers, scientists, governments were able to define that age using one word. One word to define that age, those ages: iron, stone, machine, computer, information age, globalization age. But now we have entered a world that one word is not enough to describe it. They use an acronym called VUCA. It is very, very important because whatever we do, we need to understand the context in which we are doing and what are the forces at work within that context. So VUCA simply stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That's our word for you. And it's not coming from me. It is coming from scholars who are working to understand what is the situation in which we are. So they describe our world as a VUCA world. So VUCA stands for volatility, the opposite of stability, uncertainty, the opposite of certainty, complexity, the opposite of simplicity, and ambiguous, something you have to do without certainty and guarantee. So in this type of world, how do you plan? How do you conduct need assessment? How do you do scoping? How do you do stakeholder mapping? How do you do estimation? How do you do strategic articulation? And how do you come up with implementation plan? In summary, it is not an easy time in the whole world. I don't need to say, you all remember COVID-19. You remember the Russian-Ukrainian war and their impact on the global economy. I don't need to remind you about the global financial meltdown, the rising cost of living. I don't need to remind you about the different number of conflicts of different dimensions, both local, national, and international. We are all living that reality. It affects us wherever we go. So next, please. So I start my presentation with these are the contents. You can see there are 12 elements that we can discuss briefly and conclude. Ranging, okay, the objectives of the presentation. One is to highlight the importance of water in development, in human life, in sustaining human civilization, in building economy. Let's start from the theme of this expo. The organizers call it building resilient economy. Why are we talking about resilient economy? What is resilience, by the way? Resilience is the ability to recover from an upheaval, crisis, setback, or disaster. So we want an economy that can bounce back after an era of crisis, and after a time of underdevelopment or setbacks, and you know, and I know we have many of them. So that's why the organizers are thinking, how do we organize the Kaduna State economy, and by extension, the Nigerian economy, to be resilient? Because there are so many forces that are working to negate our aspirations, to make it difficult. After doing one step forward, there are so many forces that want to take us 10 steps backward. So how do we recover? Next. Good. I start with a question. When you hear the word water, what comes to your mind? Is it your hand dug well, or your machine drill borehole? Or is it water from tap? Or is it rain? Is it lake? Is it the content of human blood? Is it water for agriculture? Water for urbanization? Water for sanitation? When they talk of water, water is a very, very complex substance. Some people worship it. Some people, their whole economy is dependent upon water, maritime economy, blue economy. Some countries are blessed with maritime economy. Some countries are not. Nigeria has a coastal landmass, a coastal territory that is equal to 1/3 of the national size. If you take the 924 square kilometers of Nigeria, we have 1/3 of it projected into the sea based on the international law. So when you are going to talk about water, it is better for us to look at it in its totality from different perspectives so that we'll be able to do justice to the issues under consideration. Next one. Okay, I have discussed this. The role water can play in building resilience. Most of the crises in the world today talk about violence, violent conflict, dispute. Water has a role to play. Human health, water has a role to play. Food security, water has a role to play. There is nothing you can talk about that does not include water. And we have water. You can look at different types of water. I've talked about the fresh water and the salt water. Go to there. I have a sketch, please. Move. Go on. Yes. If you look at that item by your right-hand side, it gives you an idea of the amount of water in the world. The first bar chart has 3 elements. The tallest element, which is green, is showing you the composition of salt water contained in the sea in the world. About 97.5% of the water in the world is a seawater. That apart from navigation, it is very, very difficult to use it for any other human purpose. You can do little tourism. You can do offshore mining, hydrocarbons. You can do offshore tourism. But as far as human needs for human consumption, you have to do desalination. And it is more expensive than refining hydrocarbons. If you go up, you see a very small percentage of the water, about 0.9%. The 2.5% on top, that is the fresh water. And 90% of the fresh water is trapped in glacier, ice caps, fresh water is trapped there. The only one that is available, bulk part of it is underground. The surface water is very negligible percentage. So all this preamble is to lay a foundation of how strategic, how the nexus between water and human survival and human development. The essence of the presentation is to talk about water infrastructure investment. In my presentation, I have about 4. There are water infrastructure for water supply, be it for human consumption at family level or for business purposes. You have infrastructures dedicated to satisfying the water needs of households and businesses. That's one side. Then there is another set of infrastructure that has to do with sanitation. Sanitation, we need to understand it very well. It is about the disposal of human waste. Human beings generate waste, solid waste that people sweep the street. That's not part of sanitation. You are talking about human waste when you go to the loo to ease yourself, either solid or liquid. What do you do with it? When our sisters and daughters menstruate monthly, the waste, what do you do with it? That's the sanitation. And the principle of sanitation requires 2 things. The self-containment, so that it does not harm the environment and it does not harm the people. So there are a set of infrastructure related to water that has to do with human sanitation. The third one is water infrastructure related to agriculture, which is irrigation. Because sometimes water supply are seasonal. They don't last throughout the year. They are available for some months and they are not available for some other months. So mankind were able to develop infrastructure that they can capture and store the water. And after storing the water, they can use it during the dry period. So we have another set of infrastructure that is dedicated to irrigation and agricultural purposes. The next set of infrastructure is tourism infrastructure. Water has been a source of wonder in the world. Some of the 7 wonders of the ancient world were related to water. Water was the foundation of most of the civilizations in the world. Look at the Egyptian civilization, is because of the Nile Valley. It is ability to have water source that makes mankind to stop hunter-gatherer and settle down and become and have sedentary civilization. So these 4 categories of water infrastructure, infrastructure for agri, for water supply, for sanitation, and for tourism. This is what we are inviting people to look at the potentials and invest in them, because all the other dreams of building cities, building industries, building whatever, without water, it comes to zero. So water must be an integral part of any plan. And in Kaduna State, I'm happy to inform you that we have 2 plans right now in operation. We have the Infrastructure Development Master Plan. We have the Kaduna State Economic and Social Development Plan. All of them have chapters that include water resources that can be exploited. So go direct to invest water infrastructure. Please go direct. The paper is very rich. It is available so that you can take time to read. It's about 19 pages, but we have to summarize in 15 minutes. Go ahead. Okay, please, let me say a word here. The water in the world, one, is limited in supply and is very fragile. You can take a drum of water, just you take something unhealthy and you drip it and you waste the water. So water is limited in supply and it is fragile and is facing a lot of problems and challenges. I have listed the problem and challenges. For humanity to be able to save water resources for the current and future generation, there are some global paradigms, some frameworks for managing water resources. And this paper discussed two. There is the doubling principles, about 4 of them that were conceived at the International Water Summit of 1992. They say water is limited in supply, water is fragile, and to make maximum use of it, it should be participatory. Everybody should be in the table, whether farmer, whether herder, whether government, whether health, whether women, men, rich, poor, it should be participatory. Management of water resources should be inclusive. It also talk about, go back. Then the highest paradigm, that's the concept of managing water, is called IWRM, Integrated Water Resource Management. It has 3 principles. Social equity, meaning leave no one behind. Economic efficiency, meaning if you make investment in water, it has to pay back. That is what investors are very interested. Before, people thought water is free, it's a gift of God. Yes, it's a gift of God, but it's in the river. If somebody make investment and bring it to your household or to your premises, you have to pay for that service. It's a value added. If he do not do it, you can't get it there. Even if you are digging a hole to get a tube, that's effort. It's an investment. So you are getting from your investment. The third element of water governance is environmental sustainability. Whatever you do investment in on water, make sure it does not damage the environment. Because if it damages the environment, you are destroying the ecosystem, you are destroying the biodiversity, you are destroying the capacity of the future and the current generation in utilization of water. So in summary, most of the water resources in the world are not regarded as isolated elements. They are regarded as parts of the river basin. If you want to do investment in infrastructure, you identify a river basin. You start with basin assessment. You assess it economically, potential for power generation. Does it have potential for water abstraction for human use? Does it have potential for agriculture? From the assessment, you now do cost-benefit analysis, which is the best option for you to do. And in doing the cost-benefit analysis, when you forgo certain options, that's when the economic opportunity costs come in. So whatever option you select, you have to know that there are economic costs of the options you forgo. So let's conclude by looking at Kaduna. When this government came in 2015, they look at what we have in terms of infrastructure, policies, institutions, and discover that it is very, very backward and underdeveloped. So what the government did was to formulate Kaduna State Water Supply and Sanitation Law policy. From the law, it was developed into Kaduna State Water Supply, Sanitation, and Hygiene 2016. And the law itself, which is available online in the website of Kaduna State, or you can reach Kaduna State Water Corporation and get a copy, created a number of institutions. RUWASA for water and sanitation in the rural areas. Kaduna State Water Corporation, which is the new version of the former Kaduna State Water Board, is now commercialized. It's a business entity that is charged to deliver services and do cost recovery. And it's open for business across the value chain. Then the government also made investment in Zaria Water Supply Expansion and Sanitation Project, by building a new dam called Galma Dam, by building a 150 million liters water treatment plant, one of the largest in the country. And that singular investment, which costed about $172 million in partnership with federal government, African Development Bank, and Islamic Development Bank, the capacity was 380, now is 530 million liters per day. The sector have challenges. If you want to do investment in the water sector, there are critical success factors. There should be political will. The political will should create an enabling environment. There should be policies, institutions, and regulations to govern the activities of players. There should be expert manpowers. There should be framework for private sector, development partners, civil society to participate. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I hope you have gotten something about investing on infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the MD of KADINVEST. I wouldn't call that a presentation. I'll call it a lecture on account of how rich it is. Thank you, sir, for sharing with us the investment opportunities. We'll be moving to the next presentation, but for this, we're going to be ordering it a little different. We're going to be having the MD of KAPSCO, Dolapo Pupola. She was our moderator for the first panel, and she'll be talking about investment opportunities in the Kaduna State power sector. But before I call her up, if you notice on the armband you were given, there is a barcode agenda for the day, and you would also see a feedback form. Your feedback is very important to us. So please scan it and give us whatever feedback you have on the sessions. So back to our presentations. Let's welcome Dolapo Pupola to take the podium.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Let me bring this to my level. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to have this opportunity to speak on my area of expertise. Moderating is not my day job, and I hope I did a good job of it earlier. But now I'm in my element, and I've been given 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to make quick work of it. I'm an engineer by trade, so I'll apply engineering principles here. They say that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So I'm going straight to the point of the investment opportunities in Kaduna State. I'll be limiting it to 5 key focus areas. And for each one, I would mention the opportunities. I would try to give you a sense of what the potential market is and give you some data. And then after that, I will also show you an example or a case study of other investors that have done similar projects in that particular focus area, just so that you can maybe begin to think about what you could also do with available funding. And because I'm going to be going relatively quickly, I will put my contact information in the last slide. So if there's any follow-up questions, you can always message me, email, or just reach out to us on social media. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be covering 5 key focus areas. The first is increasing access to electricity. Second, powering off-grid communities. The third is executing independent power projects. The fourth is maintaining streetlights. And finally, providing power to public buildings. Next slide, please. So I will start with the opportunities in the first focus area, which is increasing access to electricity. Research has shown that about 46% of people living in Nigeria do not have access to grid electricity. So what are the opportunities here? What can we do? And I am so pleased to actually have my brother, the managing Director of Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company here today. So I'm sure during his panel, he will cover a lot about what the distribution company is doing and what plans they have to improve supply to your homes and to your businesses. But outside of that, as an investor, what can you do to increase your access to electricity? So there's an opportunity to construct dedicated substations. What do I mean by this? Typically, you see substations, power substations that are owned by the distribution company, maybe when you're driving past a major highway or something. But did you know that you could actually construct and operate a grid-connected substation as long as it serves a dedicated economic cluster? So think of an industrial zone, economic zone, maybe a big mass housing residential area, or even shopping complexes. Secondly, you could apply for a distribution franchise license from the distribution company. They will earmark an area or zone out of their franchise area for you, execute a franchise agreement with you, and you would receive the license to generate within that zone and also bill on behalf of Kaduna Electric. Next slide, please. So a case study for this one focus area I mentioned, which is increasing access to electricity, is this 2x60 MVA substation. Don't worry about the technical terms. It's just a big powerhouse. Doesn't generate power, but rather transmits it. And it's being built for the Green Economic Zone in Maraban, Jos. We also have Mr. Khalifa here of KK Kingdom, who has the rights to promote and build that zone. And I'm sure he will talk a little bit more about the green economic zone at some point during this event today. Next slide, please. I will now go straight to the next opportunity, the second focus area. This is powering off-grid communities. If you were asleep before, wake up now. This section applies to your homes, your grandma's home in the village, wherever you're from, Kagara community, wherever you're from. What can you do to get power there? And how can investors help to get you power? So first option is mini grid installations. These are solar mini grids that are built and connected to several homes within a community. They could be new mini grids, or we even have a database of existing mini grids that have been left unmaintained. So you can rehabilitate them for less cost than building a new one, and then connect those houses, charge them, bill, recoup your capital, and interest and profit. There is also available subsidies that you can obtain from the Rural Electrification Agency and the World Bank to help with such endeavors. Second of all is solar for all. If you're a public servant in Kaduna State, a civil servant, even if you work with the federal government, but you're actually based in Kaduna State, this is also for you. So the Solar for All is a first of its kind salary deductible financing scheme that allows you to get a solar system with no down payment, okay? So they sign on today, give you your solar system, and then we begin to deduct from your salary on an agreed tenure. For investors or solar developers here, what you want to do is you want to approach Capsco with your quality product. We'll test it, and if it's cleared for deployment, you can then be enrolled in the program and immediately have a database of 70,000 people to sell your products to. So a case study for this focus area, next slide, please. I wanted to give two examples. There is an investor called Connexa who has signed a distribution franchise agreement with Kaduna Electric to serve some communities in Igabi and around Kaduna State. This picture here is of the 21.9 kilowatts off-grid solar system that they installed in Ruhugi community. I hope I'm saying it correctly. In Igabi local government area. The second one, which is still in the development phase, that's why you don't have an actual picture of the installation, because I prefer to show actual pictures, so you believe that this is going on. It's a partnership between NextGrid, Zara Energy, and the Kaduna Power Supply Company. We intend to install 3 mini grids across communities in Zaria, and the Kaduna Power Supply Company is supporting with the distribution infrastructure required for that investment. Next slide, please. So the third focus area is executing independent power projects. So what does this mean? Up until now, I've been talking about distributing and transmitting power. So all your high tension, low tension wires, overhead lines, that's what I've really been talking about, as well as solar mini grids. But when I talk about independent power plants, I now mean larger scale generation of power, because you first have to generate the power before you can transmit it and distribute it and for it to get to the homes. So what are the opportunities here for investors? Independent power projects are standalone power projects. They're embarked upon by either the public or the private sector to generate power and distribute to specific customers. So in this case, you're not plugging into the national grid. You're going to be generating and supplying a particular cluster. So these projects typically do not plug into the national grid. And as I mentioned before, you can build them to serve certain economic clusters. Okay, so I remember during the panel session earlier on, if you were here, the administrator of KCTA had mentioned some of the solar projects we're doing in Kaduna. He had mentioned 100 megawatts. He had mentioned Gurara, 30 megawatts. He had mentioned 84 megawatts. So all of these are considered independent power projects. Next slide, please. So of course, it goes without saying. So the case study for this particular one is the 84 megawatt combined cycle thermal power plant, which is currently under development. So on the screen there, you have the layout as well as the site engineers beginning to take over the site and plan out activities for how the plant is going to be constructed. We have, of course, already purchased the thermal fired turbines. And we intend for this to be combined cycle, which minimizes waste and makes sure that we optimize our resources to get the best power output from the plant. There's also the famous, should I call it, AKK pipeline. I think we all should know about it, Ajaokuta Kaduna Kano pipeline. And this is being built by the federal government and being implemented by GACN. The point of this is to get pipeline from the south piped all the way to the north. As you can imagine, the gas can be used to power power plants. It can also be used in your homes, cooking gas, and in fact, the opportunities are endless here. So the fourth focus area is maintaining street lights. And I thought I would see some few eyes just light up at this, because that's one of the things we get a lot of complaints about, particularly in Kaduna metropolis, is that how do we keep our street lights on? Yes, thank you for installing them. Yes, we have our streets are brighter now, but when anything happens, who takes responsibility? What's your plan, right? So for us, we're doing a lot as government, but the private sector can also help us. One of the things we've been doing is we've started to geotag every single street light in Kaduna State. We started a few months ago and we're already about 1,162, I remember. What we want to do with the database is to be able to say, okay, when you call us or tell us a particular street light is off, we can immediately pinpoint where exactly it is, go there, fix it, and get it back running as soon as possible. But yeah, that's all good and well, right? But in 2021, should we really have to wait for you to call us? Should we really have to rely on good-natured or good-meaning citizens to say, hey, your street light is not working? No, there's technology, right? So there's technology, there's sensors you can put on your street lights to notify you once something goes wrong. So that's what we call the IoT. And that's where we're inviting investors. Thank you. And that's where we're inviting investors to see how they can partner with us to supply this critical infrastructure, or should I call it an upgrade to our street lights. And of course, we can come up with financing models. You can charge us a tariff. There could be things that we could discuss around this if this is something that as an investor, you are skilled at doing. Next slide, please. So the case study for this particular area is our Rural Lighting Initiative in Soba local government. It was implemented to complement the Urban Renewal Program. It was also to boost socioeconomic activities at night and improve security in that community. Now, this particular one I'm showcasing, I think you're on the wrong slide. Next slide, please. Are we stuck? Okay, while we wait for them to get that back up. So I was saying that those streetlights I'm trying to showcase are not yet IoT integrated. So there's a massive opportunity for you to come and partner with us and do this. Last but not the least, and I would really hope we can get the screen back up. Okay, we'll carry on without it. So thankfully, this happened when we got to the last point. But the last focus area I want to talk about is providing power to public buildings. Yes, there's a market in there for you. A big market, actually. Because, of course, as we all know, everybody sitting here is a customer of Kaduna Electric. Right or wrong? Right or wrong? Okay, so is the government house a customer of Kaduna Electric? Yes, exactly. Is the secondary school a customer of Kaduna Electric? Okay, that's yes and no, actually. A lot of our schools don't have access to grid-connected electricity, okay? So therein lies the opportunity for investors. Now, the size of this potential market is we've got about 6,000 primary schools, rough figure, in Kaduna State, 1,190 primary healthcare centers, 550 secondary schools, even offices. We have more than 300 offices, and we all need power. We all need reliable, dependable power supply. And as we mentioned earlier on, the government can't do everything. The scale of work, of infrastructure that is required from the government is really large, and the resources and funds available to us are insufficient. This is why we're asking for the private sector to partner with us. So what can you do? How can you help the government? How can you partner with us to achieve these goals? One area is off-grid power. Oh, thank you very much. The slides are back. So off-grid power, first, you can offer us power as a service. Anybody know about power as a service? Excellent. You're my target investor. In this scenario, you come, you bring your power plants, you generate power, you plug into us as your customers or your client, and then you charge us a tariff. We have an agreement and we're good to go. Furthermore, if you're one of the investors doing mini-grid installations, solar mini-grid installations in off-grid communities, I guarantee you, guaranteed, there is either a PhD or a school in that community. Yes or no? So as long as there's a school or a community, a school or a PhD in that community, we can be your anchor off-takers because you're guaranteed to have supply to us and we'll off-take it. And we can help balance your financing model for the rest of the community as you build on, deploy, and scale out. That's the second opportunity in off-grid power. You could also be an integrated energy provider to us. You can manage the supply of power to our offices, schools, and PhDs. What does this mean? Even if we're a customer of Kaduna Electric and we have a generator, and we're still complaining that we don't have adequate or sufficient power, you can come in and decide on the perfect blend, grid, solar, generator, whatever it is. But we'll have an agreement to say, hey, I want my power 23 hours a day guaranteed. Is your business how you achieve it? Just charge me whatever tariff. And that's an opportunity for you as an investor. And that's what I'm calling the integrated energy provider. Next slide, please. So a case study for this, for providing power to public buildings, is our Solar for Health program. Under this program in phase 1 and phase 2, we've actually supplied dependable, consistent power to 34 PHCs and 13 hospitals. And we're currently deploying a lot more solar systems to cover 221 PHCs. Now, the goal of the Solar for Health is to make sure that in every single ward of Kaduna State, there's a solar-powered PHC. That means that you can have access to quality healthcare. There's nothing like they want to treat you, but please come and buy diesel or fuel so we can run your tests in the lab. Nothing like that anymore. And there's always, if there's one solar-powered PHC in each ward, that means there's a solar-powered PHC within 2 kilometers of wherever you live in Kaduna State. Next slide, please. So I wanted to summarize the impact. In this presentation, as I come to a close, I've given you 5 case studies, correct? You're with me? There are 5. Now I'm going to tell you or give you an overview of the impact of just those 5 I spoke about today, to tell you that if you do invest in the power sector, these are the kinds of impacts you can expect. So we've affected 3.2 million lives through the Solar for Health program. We've equipped 49 graduates with the knowledge needed to thrive in the power sector. We've installed over 2.4 megawatts of solar, connected over 16 communities to electricity. We've avoided 681.4 metric tons of carbon dioxide or gas emissions. We have also enhanced commerce and nighttime economy. We've increased access to quality healthcare, and I won't read them all because I'm running out of time. But the impact, as you can imagine, is huge. It's massive. Power affects every single sector of our economy, every single economic sector. You can barely do anything without power, really. So as I close, I just want to say that I've covered just 5 areas of possible investment, and this is within the existing national electricity regulatory environment, within the constraints of the existing regulatory environment. However, I actually expect more opportunities to open up as we transition to state electricity markets. So next slide. Okay, this last slide is a little critical. This is where the contact information is as I close. Next slide. All right, so thank you very, very much for your time, for listening to me. And here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, MD Capsco. Over 3 million lives impacted and more to come. Can we please give her another round of applause? So I know we're tired, it's hot. Thankfully, one of our main sponsors, KK Kingdom, has made sure you have water and drinks available. So thank you again to KK Kingdom for making us more comfortable. We're going to power through the rest of the session. We know it's been a long day and it's a hot afternoon. So we're just going to do it back-to-back real quick so that we can go out and probably enjoy the rest of the sectors or go home and rest if that's what we want. Does that sound good? Yes, awesome. Okay, so we're moving into a presentation. This is going to be by the MD of Kadra, Engineer Habiba Buhari, and her presentation is titled Private Sector Investment in Transport Infrastructure. Can we give her a round of applause as she comes up?
Hello, okay. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Habiba Buhari, the MD of Kadra, and I want to warmly welcome you to KADINVEST 7. And I've been asked to make a presentation on opportunities for private investors in Kaduna State Road Infrastructure. There's supposed to be a video playing right now, but I don't know, something went wrong. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue. The second slide, yes, contents. Move to the next one. Yes, the Kadra mandate is on the third slide, and it's basically telling you what Kadra does in line with the mandate basically is to design, construct, upgrade, maintain, and generally manage the road infrastructure in Kaduna State in line with the Act of KADRA that came into play in 2017. So I will just rush into the next slide, please. Yes, so this is the subject that I'm supposed to be talking about. The opportunities we have in the road infrastructure sector. And yes, what is an opportunity? So it's, you can see it on the second paragraph. A business opportunity is the chance to take advantage of an occurrence in the market for business gain. It is what makes some business succeed while others fail. So we can't take it for granted. Move to the next slide. Yes. So you would want to ask why Kaduna State, why this cosmopolitan state? I have some bullet points there. The number one bullet point there, ranked number one by the World Bank in subnational ease of doing business. So that is one of the major reasons why you should be thinking Kaduna. And of course, the second bullet point, fastest growing economy by the Africa Finance Corporation in 2017. So we have a host of others, good leadership, good governance, and it goes on to explain the demographics of Kaduna State. Next slide. Okay, yeah. It's a gateway to northern Nigeria. So if you're talking about access to other northern states, Kaduna State is, the location is good. You have access to raw materials, access to so many other things in the north and south as well. Next slide. Next slide, please. Enabling environment. Yeah, we do have a sensitive, why I call it sensitive is because particularly for me, it's gender sensitive. And other key things that make it enabling. Number two bullet point, enhance institutional capacity with reforms. Of course, we all know by now that Kaduna has done a lot of reforms for the good of everyone, both the investor and the people. Good planning strategy, and a host of others. Next slide. Next slide, please. Kaduna economic outlook. Yeah, there's steady economic growth. So a lot of businessmen and women would like to have this in an environment. Fastest growing economy, I said it earlier. Then we have the figures, which we source from the Kaduna Master Plan. Next slide, please. Kaduna State Road Networks. So we have a total of over 2,000 kilometer state roads. Then we have estimates of what we consider as poor in condition, and 22.09%, which translates to 47 over like 472 kilometer is in fair condition, and about 20%, sorry, 49.2% being in good condition. Next slide, please. Yes, investment opportunities. So this is where we are. Basically, we have a master plan. And in the master plan, there are targets. You have targets for 2018 to 2050, which is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. And you can see from that slide, you can see what is required as a midterm and a long-term journey. So actually, we are thinking concessions, tolling, and some other ways to bridge the gap. There's supposed to be a figure of 245 billion to sustain the scope of roads we need up to 2050. Next slide. So I call these low-hanging fruits. You can see from the slide, we have effect of overloading on the road. So this is one aspect that has been neglected for long. So I call it low-hanging fruits. We can't continue to have roads without taking care of the existing ones. So basically, without maintaining and controlling the existing roads we have, we can't continue to have more. It does not make sense. So we have low-hanging fruits, which is control of excessive loading on the road. So we need investors to come in this aspect to control loading for us. Next slide. I have this quick analysis. Next slide, please. Go back. Back. Okay. The next one, sorry. Okay, there is a slide is missing, but it's okay. Yes, we have been able to identify 4 locations. These are typically locations that bring in overloaded vehicles to Kaduna State. And these are Kaduna to Zaria to Kano bound, Kaduna Birningwari bound, which is the westbound, Kaduna Kachia Road, eastbound, Kaduna Abuja Road, southbound. So these are the major federal roads that bring in heavy trucks to Kaduna. We also have our new the 2 bridges, Kabala Bridge and Rabba Bridge, where we are actually conducting pre-feasibility studies to see how investors can come in. Next slide. Yeah, we have a quick analysis. This is just to justify the way bridges, investment for way bridges, why you may think is attractive. There are studies that have been conducted by the World Bank and the Road Sector Development Team. That was a long time ago, but they were able to identify that 800 average daily traffic of average daily traffic of trucks along Abuja-Kaduna Road was 800, out of which 33.5% defaulted. And when I say defaulted, 33.5% were carrying heavy loading. So we just assume that by now, we should have like 40 to 50% of whatever average daily traffic you have on the road. We are assuming 1,000, so 40 to 50% will give you 500. And We also have a regulation, a federal government regulation, that stipulates the minimum penalty being 1 million. So using the number of 500 trucks that default and 1 million naira per penalty, it will give you 500 million per day. This is the minimum. So next slide, please. So yeah, this is only telling you, just go to the next one. I'll come back to this. Yeah, what are those things that we're looking at in the future, in the near future? We're looking at other reforms on tolling policy, road fund, updates in our laws, credit enhancements, and so on, just to mention a few. Can you kindly go back to the slide? Yes, I was going to talk about the sources of information we have. So there's Kaduna State survey traffic data, axle load studies by the federal government, then the federal regulation, and the KADRA law. And the piece of the diagram there shows you how the weighbridge system works. But there's a better video to actually explain that. So this is the end of my presentation. I was given 10 minutes to do that. And I have 2 important videos to show.
This is the Avery Weightronics digital weighbridge, which was commissioned in 2007 to get measurement and weights of trucks conveying heavy-duty luggage, which ply the nation's highways. The facility has been non-functional for many years. The weighbridges will serve as a measurement scale to ensure that trucks are not overweight, a way of ensuring safety of lives and property. The Minister of Works and Housing is paying a working visit to Lagos to ascertain the level of work thus far to reintroduce the mechanism of assessing the weight of trucks and the luggage they convey.
The essence of it is to make sure that all the trucks that will carry that will always be overloaded, they will take the weight and then the excess load will be removed. After the weight has been taken, whatever is the excess will be valued and the fine will be paid. That barrier is to ensure that all the trucks that will be using Lagos Ibadan, we have to know what the quantity of what they are carrying.
The weighbridge located in Ikeja is equipped with solar units to generate power, police units, computer systems, and machinery to ensure proper measurement of luggage on each truck, so that the trucks and haulage vans are not too heavy for the road.
Once you exceed the specified axle load, the specified tonnage per axle load, then we have a problem in terms of law and order. And these are the consequences. You will pay fines ranging from 1 million to over 10 million. So the reason we have also done that is that we want to make it cheaper to comply and very expensive to break the law. And in that way, we hope that people will choose to comply instead of paying excessive penalties.
From the weighbridge, the minister moves to Kara Underbridge, where he speaks to the mechanics. It is expected that more weighbridges will be erected in various places in Lagos and across the nation to combat the overloading of vehicles that drive on our roads in order to manage infrastructure properly.
Is it ready?
This is the Weight Tronics digital weighbridge.
Okay. Okay. So I think the second video or the third one, there are two, right? They will play later. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It feels like our energy levels are dwindling. Can we do a pick-me-up activity? Just one, can we? Yes, thank you. So I would like to invite Sharon Itwa and Bushra Balogun to join me on stage. It's a simple thing, but I need them to demonstrate. So while we're doing it, you will do it on your seat, unless you want to stand up with us, whichever one you prefer. Thank you. So it's called the Macarena. It's a dance. It's very easy. So I would please like everyone. Thank you. Someone is doing it at the back. So it's very easy. I'd like everyone to just follow. So you take your right hand out. Why are people not raising their hands, please? Right hand out, left, up, turn your hand around, turn the second one, put this on your shoulder, the next one on your shoulder, take this and put it behind your head, the other one behind your head, this, put it on your waist, second one, then to the back, and to the back, roll it around. Yes, so if you want to stand, it's perfect when you stand, but you can sit whichever you prefer. So we're going to do it again. I hope we know what we're doing now. So 1, 2, 3, go. Hand out, second hand, turn it up, shoulder, shoulder, back of your head, to your waist, put it to the back, second to the back, roll it around. Please, can we do this standing up? Just one, please. Can we stand to our feet and do this? After this, we're powering through and we're done for the day. Please, let's stand to our feet. Thank you. So, are we ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Right hand, left hand, open up, to your shoulder, back of your head, to your waist, back of your waist, and roll it around. Awesome. Thank you so much. You can take your seats. So the next item on the agenda, we're going to be having a video presentation by UK NIAF. He's already on the stage and he's going to be very brief. So once we get done, we have our panel session and then presentations from our sponsors and we're done for the day. Please give him a round of applause. He's not here, but he would like to feel your energy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Abdul Oladapo. Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Abdul Oladapo. I'm speaking about PPP and infrastructure financing. It's a pleasure to be here. I would have loved to be with you in person, but unfortunately, I'll have to keep this virtually. I have been asked to shorten my presentation, so I've structured it into 5 components. I'll just give you a very quick overview of UK NIAF and what we do, talk about what we do. I will talk about why we should use PPPs to deliver infrastructure. I will speak a little bit about PPP critical success factors, looking at, different lens. Then I'll talk a bit about the collaboration we've had with the Kaduna state government, particularly working with KADIPA over the past 2 years. And some of the key learnings from the collaboration we've had with KADIPA and how this can be used to help deliver infrastructure in Kaduna state. So talking about UK NIAF, So we are an advisory facility funded by the UK government. So the full thing is United Kingdom Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility. We are currently structured into 2 components. So there is the power component and the infrastructure finance component, which I'm part of. And we work with federal government, with a number of subnationals, first being Kaduna State, but now we have approval to work with a number of subnationals as well. And we also work with donor stakeholders to transform the way the Nigerian government prioritizes and finances climate-smart infrastructure projects. And our strategy to work is there were a number of key issues in the infrastructure delivery framework, which we try to address by certain interventions to establish a number of outcomes. And some of these issues are, legal and regulatory constraints in projects, technical and resource capacity gaps, and in some cases as well, preference for direct procurement. What do? We actually build institutional and human capacity within the government we work with. And it's centered around collaborative working. I think with Kaduna State, we actually did sign a mutual accountability framework that was signed by His Excellency, the Governor, and the counterpart was signed by the team leader, the MD of UKNIA. So we work together with the counterpart, and getting the transaction advisors who will actually structure these projects to enable them get support. And with all of this, what we do, we're able to sort of establish a credible pipeline of projects. And our work also helps increase investor confidence, which now sort of crowds in financing into the space. So yes, mindful of my time, I will be rushing through the slides a little bit. Now, talking about why PPPs, governments generally go for PPPs for a number of reasons. One is, when there's reduced financing, reduced availability of financing in the government coffers, the cash from the investors is a huge attraction. Therefore, it's seen as an alternative way to finance infrastructure. Then there's also the drive to have to get money off balance sheet. And when you're sort of hitting your debt ceiling and you have limited headroom for additional debt, you're actually quite keen to look the way of PPPs. However, there are other significant benefits that shouldn't be overlooked, and this potentially could even be prioritized more. These are because this ensures you have upfront capital. There is upfront commitment of resources for maintenance and technical reliability. Then it delivers demonstration effects, and there's also transparency and reduction of corruption because of the private sector funding that is required. Then also you do have a better way to deliver projects. I think importantly, I would need to look at PPP critical success factors. On the side of government, government needs to provide an enabling environment for private sector investment and also ensure there's project preparation funding for projects. I think in Kaduna State, it's great to know that Kaduna State has one of the most developed PPP frameworks in the country. And as the MD of Castro said earlier, Kaduna State is number one in ease of doing business. And there's been so much reforms that's happened in the last 7+ years that makes it really, really attractive for infrastructure investment. It's also important to have the in-house capacity to progress projects. On the private sector side, private sector needs to have project development funding and the capacity to structure transactions to raise capital. And they also need to have the capacity to be able to deliver these projects. I'll talk a little bit about the collaboration we've had. We've supported a number of projects. One of them is the Green Agro-Allied Industrial Zone project, which I will be giving a separate presentation on in the Agriculture Expo, I think in about an hour. We've also done some work in renewable energy in Kaduna as well, working closely with KADIPA and CAPSCO, and the MD of CAPSCO did give a presentation earlier. Then we also did some work on the grains irrigation centers. We'll be happy to, have conversations later and to give further detail. You can always do reach out to us. But to round up, I think I'll just talk about the key learnings. From our work with Kaduna State, and I think some things that investors and government needs to bear in mind. Yes, as I mentioned before, Kaduna State has one of the most developed PPP frameworks and with subnationals. But it's also important to recognize and manage the interface between federal and subnational agencies, because there are things that need to be addressed at the federal level, and this, is critical for these things to be addressed properly. Then for innovative financing, it's, the private sector needs to ensure they really look at how to finance projects to be able to make them bankable. And we're actually working on some mechanisms. One mechanism, for example, is what we've introduced for the Green Agri-led Industrial Zone project, where we're leveraging sovereign lending to be able to raise private sector capital to make the project bankable. Also, we're also looking at how to structure some sort of financing facilities that would utilize short-term lending from banks. Then you now are able to provide private sector provided guarantees that would crowd in institutional investors to provide long-term financing. And I think to also end the presentation, I would also like to say that yes, there is also international capital available, and a lot of it is being driven into climate smart infrastructure projects. So it's also important to look at the projects that will, ensure climate adaptation and mitigation, because it also enables you to attract capital better. So yes, at this point, thanks very much for having me, and I wish you a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we're gradually coming to a close. Thankfully, the weather is better. It's not as hot on your bright side, even though it's raining. So we'll make sure that we use microphones that are loud so that everyone can hear over the rain. But we're moving into the second panel session. And to moderate this panel, I'll be inviting up on stage Genom Dada, a Kashim Ibrahim Fellow and Special Assistant to the Kaduna State Governor. Thank you for clapping for her. Joining her to discuss the opportunities in the infrastructure sector for businesses, we have Umar Mohammed, the Head of Investment and the Deputy Team Leader for Links. We have Engineer Habibu Buhari, the MD of Kadra. We have Suleiman Yusuf, the CEO of Blue Camel Energy. And we have Engineer Yusuf Usman Yahaya, the MD of Kadeco, that's the Kaduna Electric Distribution Company. So as I mentioned, they'll be discussing the opportunities in infrastructure for businesses, infrastructure sector. So you will learn how to key in your business to make money from the infrastructure sector.
Stop all these nonsense. I'm telling you. I mean, business is money. Just give me a look. Leave me now to do something now. I'm not disturbing you. I don't sound that's
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a privilege to be standing before you. I'm Genom Dada. I am a strategy and policy development professional and a data analyst, currently a Kashim Ibrahim Fellow and Special Assistant to the Governor of Kaduna State. For our panel discussion today, we're discussing on the opportunities in the infrastructure sector for businesses. And just like the MC already said, On the panel, we have Engineer Habiba Buhari. I'll just quickly, yikes. Sorry, that one working. All right, so I'll just quickly go through her bio. Engineer Buhari is the Managing Director, CEO, Kaduna State Roads Agency, a registered engineer, Fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Fellow of Nigerian Institution of Civil Engineers, alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School of Government, certified PPP practitioner, member World Association of PPP, Geneva, Association of Professional Women Engineers, public servant, wife, and a mother. She has a BEng from Bayero University, Kano, MSc, Bridge Engineering from Surrey, England, AfriProjects Consortium,